Hi, I'm Rohit Bhargava, and I just wrote a book called Personality Not Included.
Today we heard Haslett, the VP of marketing at Kodak, talk about how they changed their company. In the last 4 years they have changed. My question is, he's an interesting person himself,
Yes, he is.
So how does somebody like him infuse their company brand? It's the personality infusing the company brand.
Is a great example because he has a very strong personality, and he's brought that personality to the brand that he works for, in this case Kodak. But I think the interesting thing that companies who manage to do that and extend it to their brand also manage to do is, first they kill their silencing policy. Because a lot of the loss of personality is by companies who say to their employees, you're not allowed to talk to anyone, you're not allowed to say anything to anyone about our company. And that's the first step to silencing personality, because if somebody's not allowed to talk about anything, then they're not allowed to share what they do, and they're not allowed to share their passion for what they do. So getting rid of that is the first step. And that's not to say that that's easy, but that's what Jeff's challenge is going to be for Kodak, so that he's not the single star, that it actually extends beyond him to the rest of the Kodak brand.
And you talk about silencing the personality. He talked about lawyers and how he's always accompanied with 3 lawyers because they're always looking to see if he's crossed some line.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile the two? Because there is a legal angle where there is a line beyond which people and companies are not supposed to cross. And then there is the other space where he's operating, and he's pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, the interesting thing with lawyers is that, lawyers and marketers have had an adversarial relationship for a long time. And I think that the problem is that lawyers have the point of power to say yes or no. And marketers have started to put themselves in the role of saying okay. And I think that's wrong. And I think that the way around it is by getting the lawyers to work harder. And what I mean by that is that lawyers should be the enablers of how you can do something, not the disablers of telling you how not to do something.
Or the showstoppers.
Or the showstoppers, because there is a way to do a lot of things, but it means that the lawyers have to work harder. They can't cut and paste terms and conditions that they've used on 12 different contests. They have to actually create something that lets you do what you want to do in a way that is legal and that will fly. And most lawyers are not ready to do that. That's not the sort of role that they are used to, and it's very tough to get them to work that hard.
So in the last 4 or 5 years, there have been some very interesting developments in the Web 2.0 space, where all these distribution channels for content, has appeared. So content now can be distributed free of all kinds of rules and regulations. I don't have to be a big company with tons of money to distribute my content.
Right.
How then do you reconcile what has happened in the last 4 or 5 years, with all these different social media tools and the silencing policy that you talk about, and then the lawyers?
Right. It's, you're hitting on a big challenge for a lot of brands, which is, essentially it's the question of control, right? You used to have it, now you don't have it. And the biggest myth that marketers hear from a lot of people right now is that they need to give up control. And one of the things I share in the book is that it's not about giving up control, it's about sharing control. And what that means is that the conversation's already happening, and brands that think that it isn't aren't listening. And the brands who do get it are the ones who are part of the conversation and are sharing the control back and forth with their consumers. Because then you're not in a point of giving up. You don't throw your hands up and say, oh, well, we can't control the consumer conversation, therefore we're just not going to do anything about it. And you're also not in the point of over-controlling and trying to dictate to people what they can say or what they can't say, because I think most brands are starting to see that doesn't work. So the smart brands are the ones who are co-creating, who are in that space where they are sharing back and forth, so that mistakes can happen, but it's a sharing of that control, and I think that's the answer to your question.
Which are some of the companies that we haven't heard about that have done a good job of what you're talking about? There are all the big companies that we know about.
Yeah.
But what are the hidden gems?
That's a great question. That's a question that I actually really tried to answer in the book, because I didn't want to just focus on big companies. So obviously I wrote a book about personality, so I have the obvious examples of Apple in there because everybody loves their marketing and they have brilliant products.
But Apple is also very controlling.
Apple's very controlling, that's very true, and that's why I never put them up as the poster child for personality, because I don't believe that that's the perfect brand for that. But if you look at another brand, like for example Timbuk2, which is a maker of backpacks that's based in San Francisco, a smaller company. But the people who carry Timbuktu backpacks are very passionate about the fact that they love these backpacks, and they've been wearing them for a very long time. You look at a brand that makes smoothies in the UK called Innocent Drinks. Same thing, very passionate user base. People really care about the product, brilliant marketing, and the whole package goes together. So there are lots and lots of hidden gems, and one of the things that I'm really thrilled about is that the book has a lot of them in there. So it's not just big brands are doing this or small brands are doing this. It's across the whole spectrum.
If there was one person you wanted to meet, who would that be?
One person in history, I would say Shakespeare.
Okay,
but that's not a modern one, so that's probably not what you care about.
That's a good one. That's a good answer.
I think this might be a little bit like Hollywood, but I'd love to meet George Clooney.
You would?
Yes, I would.
Why?
I think that he's interesting because I do think he's a good actor, but he's interesting because everything I've heard about his personality seems to be anti-Hollywood. In that, he's a regular person, he's more genuine. I want to see whether that's true or not.
So you want to find out how he built his brand within a tightly controlled oligopoly?
Well, yes. I'm interested to see how he manages to stay a regular person with all of the fame that he's had to deal with. Because I think that that's a interesting situation for anybody to have to deal with.
If you were to take a stab, what reasons would you come up with for Clooney's brand?
I think a lot of people, I shouldn't sit here talking about Clooney that much because it's not like I follow everything he's done. But I think that one of the things that you hear over and over again about him is that he has a sense of humor that a lot of people latch onto.
Is it also self-deprecating?
Self-deprecating, and he doesn't, he obviously doesn't take himself too seriously. That's part of that too. And I think that the people who we all tend to like and associate with are the people who don't put themselves above anybody else, who do have a sense of humor, who do relate to you in a more authentic way. And I think whether you're talking about a person or whether you're talking about a brand, that is what attaches us to something in a way that creates that loyalty, whether you're loyal to someone or to something.
Final question, how do you differentiate personality and brand?
Personality, I think, is more of a manifestation of the people, whereas a brand is something that's more about an organization or about a product. So the way that I differentiate it is that personality is something that goes as a thread through everybody who works for your organization and all of your customers, whereas a brand is more about the message that you put out there.
So if we were to take my favorite example of George Clooney.
Yes, mine too.
So
he's getting some great PR, by the way.
I know. So what would the personality and brand, how would you differentiate that?
That's a little bit tougher because you're talking about an individual.
Right.
So really what you're getting to is the personal brand.
Right.
This was actually something that I struggled with when I wrote the book because dealing with a personal brand versus dealing with an organization or a company or product are very different things. And I very consciously chose to focus the book on building an organization with personality or building a product with personality. But I'm working on some content that is going to be bonus content for the book, which is all about personal brand. Because the idea there is, how do you get a better job? How do you rise up in the job that you currently have? In Clooney's case, how do you create this reputation for yourself that becomes an asset to help you get more deals?
So I just want to extend another example to you. Apple. How do you differentiate between Steve Jobs and Apple?
Yes, the interesting thing that Apple has done is their marketing definitely has a personality, but what they've done is they've made Apple to be all about innovation and great products. And the goodwill for Apple is all about their products, which is also a dangerous situation if you think about it, because as soon as they misstep on a product, there's no built-up goodwill to say, oh, that's okay, they'll make it up. As long as they keep releasing amazing products, which they have done consistently, they won't have a problem. But when they start, or if they start to misstep, that's when goodwill that could have been built up is going to make a difference.
Final question. What is your favorite George Clooney movie?
I have to admit I probably haven't even seen all of them, so
but that's okay.
I can't be that much of a fan. But I think Ocean's 11 was a pretty good George Clooney movie.
Thank you, Rohit, so much for your time.